Hey, it's Dr. Jack, and we're here today to read some more of Ozma of Oz. And the next part is more about Languidere and her heads. The maid assisted Languidere to gain her feet, although she was the stronger of the two, and then the princess slowly walked across the silver floor to her cabinet, leaning heavily at every step upon Nanda's arm. Now I must explain to you that the Princess Languidere had 30 heads, as many as there are days in the month. But of course she could only wear one of them at a time because she had only one neck. These heads were kept in what she called her cabinet, which was a beautiful dressing room that lay just between Languidere's sleeping chamber and the mirrored sitting room. Each head was in a separate cupboard lined with velvet. The cupboards ran all around the sides of the dressing room and had elaborately curved doors with gold numbers on the outside and jewel-framed mirrors on the inside of them. When the princess got out of her crystal bed in the morning, she went to her cabinet, opened one of the velvet-lined cupboards, and took the head that contained from its golden shelf. Then, by the aid of the mirror inside the open door, she put on the head, as neat and straight as could be, and afterward called her maids to robe her for the day. She always wore a simple white costume that suited all the heads. For being able to change her face whenever she liked, the princess had no interest in wearing a variety of gowns, as have other ladies who are compelled to wear the same face constantly. Of course, the 30 heads were in great variety, no two formed alike, but all being of exceeding loveliness. There were heads of golden hair, brown hair, auburn hair, black hair, none with gray hair. The heads had blue eyes, gray, hazel, brown, black. There were no red eyes. Among them were all bright and handsome. The noses were Grecian, Roman, retrousse, and oriental, representing all types of beauty, and the mouths were of assorted sizes and shapes, displaying pearly teeth when the head smiled, whenever they might be the most charming, and one or two heads had freckles upon the faces to contrast the better with the brilliancy of their complexions. One key unlocked all the velvet cupboards containing these treasures, a curious key carved from a single blood-red ruby, and this was fastened to the strong but slender chain which the princess wore about her left wrist. When Nanda had supported Languidere to a position in front of cupboard number 17, the princess unlocked the door with her ruby key, and after her handing her head number 9, which she had been wearing, to the maid, she took number 17 from its shelf and fitted it to her neck. It had black hair and dark eyes and a pearl complexion, and when Languidere wore it, she knew she was remarkably beautiful in appearance. There was only one trouble with number 17, the temper that went with it, and which was hidden somewhere under its glossy black hair, with a fiery, harsh, and haughty in the extreme, and it often led the princess to do unpleasant things which she regretted when she came to wear her other heads. However, she was greatly disappointed to find but she did not remember this today, and went to meet her guests in the drawing room with a feeling of certainty that she would surprise them with her beauty. However, she was greatly disappointed to find that her visitors were merely a small girl in a gingham dress, a copper man that would only go when wound up, and a yellow hen that was sitting contentedly in Languidere's best work basket, where there was a china egg used for darning stockings. "Oh," said Languidere, slightly lifting the nose of number 17. "I thought someone of importance had called." "Then you were right," declared Dorothy. "I'm a good deal of portance myself, and when Bellina lays an egg, she has the proudest cackle you ever heard. As for Tick-Tock, he's the—" "Stop, stop!" commanded the princess with an angry flash of her splendid eyes. "How dare you annoy me with your senseless chatter?" "Why, you horrid thing," said Dorothy, who was not accustomed to being treated so rudely. The princess looked at her more closely. "Tell me," she resumed, "are you of royal blood?" "Better than that, ma'am," said Dorothy. "I came from Kansas." "Huh!" cried the princess scornfully. "You are a foolish child, and I cannot allow you to annoy me. Run away, you little goose, and bother someone else." Dorothy was so indignant that for a moment she could find no word to reply. But she rose from her chair and was about to leave the room when the princess, who had been scanning the girl's face, stopped her by saying more gently, "Come nearer to me." Dorothy obeyed without a thought of fear and stood before the princess, while Languidere examined her face with careful attention. There's a little note on this page I need to tell you. When it talks about Bellina getting in Languidere's best work basket, where there was a china egg used for darning stockings. Then the little note below says, "It may surprise you to learn that a princess ever does such a common thing as darn stockings. But if you will stop to think, you will realize that a princess is sure to wear holes in her stockings, the same as other people, only it isn't considered quite polite to mention the matter." I'll continue on. Languidere examined her face with careful attention. "You are rather attractive," said the lady presently. "Not at all beautiful, you understand. But you have a certain style of prettiness that is different from any of my other 30 heads. So I believe I'll take your head and give you number 26 for it." "Well, I believe you won't," exclaimed Dorothy. She says, "I believe you won't." "It will do you no good to refuse," continued the princess, "for I need your head for my collection, and in the land of Eve my will is law. I never cared much for number 26, and you will find it is very little worn. Besides, it will do you just as well as the one you're wearing for all practical purposes." "I don't know anything about your number 26, and I don't want to," said Dorothy firmly. "I'm not used to taking cast-off things, so I'll just keep my own head." "You refuse?" cried the princess with a frown. "Of course I do," was the reply. "Then," said Languidere, "I shall lock you up in a tower until you decide to obey me. Nanda," turning to her maid, "call my army." Nanda rang a silver bell, and at once a big fat colonel in a bright red uniform entered the room, followed by 10 lean soldiers who all looked sad and discouraged, and saluted the princess in a very melancholy fashion. "Carry that girl to the North Tower and lock her up," cried the princess, pointing to Dorothy. "To hear is to obey," answered the big red colonel, and caught the child by her arm. But at that moment Tik-Tok raised his dinner pail and pounded it so forcibly against the colonel's head that the big officer sat down on the floor with a sudden bump, looking both dazed and very much astonished. "Help!" he shouted, and the 10 lean soldiers sprang to assist their leader. There was great excitement for the next few moments, and Tik-Tok had knocked down 7 of the army, who were sprawling in every direction upon the carpet, when suddenly the machine paused with the dinner pail raised for another blow, and remained perfectly motionless. "My action has run down," he called to Dorothy. "Wind me up quick." She tried to obey, but the big colonel had by this time managed to get upon his feet again, so he grabbed fast hold of the girl, and she was too helpless to escape. "This is too bad," said the machine. "I ought to have run 6 hours longer at least, but I suppose my long walk and my fight with the Wheelers made me run down faster than usual." "Well, it can't be helped," said Dorothy with a sigh. "Will you exchange heads with me?" demanded the princess. "No, indeed," cried Dorothy. "Then lock her up," said Languidere to her soldiers. And they led Dorothy to a high tower at the north of the palace and locked her securely within. The soldiers afterward tried to lift Tik-Tok, but they found the machine so solid and heavy that they could not stir it. So they left him standing in the center of the drawing room. "People will think I have a new statue," said Languidere, "so it won't matter in the least, and Nanda can keep him well polished." "What shall we do with the hen?" asked the colonel, who had just discovered Bellina in the work basket. "Put her in the chicken house," answered the princess. "Some day I'll have her fried for breakfast." "She looks rather tough, your highness," said Nanda doubtfully. "That is a base slander," cried Bellina, struggling frantically in the colonel's arms. "But the breed of chickens I come from is said to be poison to all princesses." "Then," remarked Languidere, "I will not fry the hen, but keep her to lay eggs, and if she doesn't do her duty, I'll have her drowned in the horse trough." The end of my chapter. The next is Ozma of Oz to the rescue. So tomorrow, we'll finally get to meet Ozma. I'll see you tomorrow.